Hi everybody, just back with another Steam Deck video, and this one's aimed at people who are maybe thinking about buying a Steam Deck, but you're a little bit worried about how heavy this thing is, because surely it's got to be quite chunky, hasn't it? You know, having this big screen and this big battery. This one's a 512GB OLED. And actually the answer to that is, it actually feels an awful lot lighter than it actually is. Okay, so what I've done is, we've got the Steam Deck, we've got some scales here, and I've got a couple of Xbox controllers, and we've got a PlayStation controller, and I've got a can of Pepsi here. So we can kind of do a real world comparison. So at home, you've probably got some of these things, so you can give it a go yourself. Now, if you'd asked me after having the Steam Deck for several days, what's it like holding in your hands? I would say, without doing any measurements, that it's very similar to holding an Xbox controller, maybe a little bit heavier than a PlayStation controller. One controller, that is. Now, that isn't actually true, because the Steam Deck is actually heavier than that, but because it's so well balanced, it doesn't feel heavy at all. Now, if we pop it on the scales, well, if we just turn the scales on first, there we go, and we pop it on the scales, we should get, so we're getting 656 grams, all right? So if we take that off, so if, for example, we measure an Xbox controller, an Xbox controller is, what, 270 grams. So one thing you could do is, if you wanted to see, if you've got Xbox controllers, pick up one in each hand, and what that will get us up to 520. And we're in the ballpark then, aren't we? However, if I was to do that now, pick up two Xbox controllers, I would say that feels heavier than the Steam Deck does, which is absolutely crazy, isn't it? Because of how well balanced it is. So if we go to a PlayStation controller, this is an old PlayStation 4 one, see how heavy that is. So if you've got a PlayStation controller, really it's kind of the same weight as holding three of those. But if you've got two PlayStation controllers, have one in each hand, and imagine it being slightly heavier, and you're kind of in the ballpark. Now, however, if you've got none of those things, but you've got a can of Coke around, so that's 343. So two of those is just shy of 700 grams, isn't it? Which is slightly heavier. So if you have a can of Coke in each hand, that's similar to what the Steam Deck actually is. However, again, I would argue that the Steam Deck in your hand actually feels a lot lighter than that. When I first unboxed it and got it out the box, I was like, this feels really, really light. It really does. And I was a little bit concerned, to be honest, about the build quality. The build quality feels, in terms of like the plastics and the D-pads and the buttons and everything, feels like an Xbox controller or a PlayStation controller. Kind of feels like that. If you've got something like maybe an Elite controller for Xbox, or something like a Thrustmaster Expert controller, where they feel a little bit chunky, it doesn't kind of feel like that. But having used the Steam Deck and playing numerous games using the D-pad and the controllers and the buttons, I've got to say that I've been very, very impressed, especially with the thumbsticks. They're really cool. And the mouse trackpads as well. They work very, very well when you're used to them. They really are a mouse replacement. The shoulder triggers feel fine on the top as well. The only thing that's a little bit odd are the buttons on the back, and they take a lot of getting used to, because they're a little bit clicky, and it feels almost like when you've got your fingers on them that you're not clicking in the right place. But I'm not used to using back buttons on any controllers, so maybe that's just me. So to kind of sum everything up, in terms of weight, the Steam Deck feels in the hand much, much lighter than it actually is on paper. If you hold a couple of Coke cans in each hand, or a Coke can in each hand, or an Xbox controller in each hand, that will give you an idea of what it weighs like. And as far as the build quality goes, build quality for me, I feel, is similar to an Xbox controller or a PlayStation controller. But overall, I'm very, very impressed with it. Anyway, hopefully that's useful. If the video has been, hit like if you want some more, and press subscribe. And I will, of course, see you again soon.